Thanks, Rachel.
Oops. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, this is how the old way of configuring which machines pick up which queues. And then we have one catch-all, which is the best effort queue. Where is it? Where is it?
There, the second one.
There. And that's because of the negate true. So the problem with this is that we don't really have any idea what best effort is doing and which kind of jobs are running there and how we can make sure they run efficiently and are not getting in each other's way and stuff like that. And if new jobs, new workers, and therefore new queues get added, we also don't really know what kind of work they'll be doing. So they just get lumped into the best effort, lumped into with the rest of the best effort jobs. And yeah, we have no idea. So that's going to change. We've added the annotation attributes, like worker attributes, to the workers. They need to indicate if they're latency sensitive, if they are CPU or memory bound, and if they have external dependencies. Am I missing something? I think Sean demoed that.
That's, yeah,
a while back. Go, Andrew.
Okay. No, I'll say afterwards. It's fine. Sorry.
Cool. So where we want to go is use those attributes to send jobs to nodes that are configured for the workload. So for example, the one we did first was low urgency CPU bound jobs, which means that we want to have a kind of a limited concurrency on them. And this is the first thing that we've deployed. We use that using this selector. So all the jobs, all the workers that the GitLab code base that have their resource boundaries set to CPU and don't have any specific urgency set to them will be picked up by this kind of workers. And as we can see, that's been deployed tonight, and those things are like that. VM is now picking up jobs. It's not very busy right now because it's just another node that it's processing the same kind of jobs as the. I think this is going to be partly best effort, and I don't know. I think partly best effort and partly ASAP jobs. That's going to be here.
Do we know which jobs are currently running in this?
We can see this here on the.
Oh yeah.
Here is which
for job.
Being, but inside the issue, which I've linked as well, I think Craig made a document which would be picked up where.
A document, as in
a Google Doc, Google Sheet.
Okay, I'll talk about that.
I think it was maybe.
There's a. I can give you. There's a one that lists all of them at the moment. It's a one that I did yesterday.
Here's the spreadsheet that.
Okay.
I'll add that.
Yeah, that's great.
As well.
Yeah, thanks. But we should just copy that into another location. I don't like Google Sheets.
I don't like this either, but we're using it anyway. There we go.
All right, thanks. I didn't see this today.
That's about it for my demo. If there's questions, shoot.
So the first thing I was going to say was that pretty much no one's going to put CPU bound on their
in the beginning, not no,
on the beginning. Yeah, and if they do, they're probably wrong. Frankly, so we should almost tell them like no, like you're not allowed to.
There's
then obviously, yeah.
There's an interesting thing that Camille brought up, like for the scalability review, they would like one of us or somebody from the memory team would be involved in any merge request that adds new workers. What we could do is like as soon as that worker gets added, we don't add a resource boundary except when we really know its memory, but we don't add a resource boundary and then create an issue to check back into it in 2 months or whatever, when it's been running and we can make that calculation.
The other thing to think is that some of the ones that have boundaries will change over time. And so what I was thinking is, rather than adding a thing to check back, is we could get like an ES Watch that just runs once a month or once a week or whatever, and it does that calculation on the fly, and it just says these are the things that are memory bound or CPU bound, and these are the things that are not, and then you can kind of look at that and move things around. So that might be a way of automating that. And it's not very much work to do. Because obviously the thing that we don't want is we don't want something that's like heavily CPU bound, running on high concurrency on the best effort nodes that aren't called best effort, catch-all nodes, and then kind of like, you know, slowing everything down on there because they're stealing all the CPU.
Yeah, but even that wouldn't hurt us that much anymore because the catch-all doesn't have any urgent jobs.
Yeah, for sure. But it's not up. It's not optimal.
It's not great.
So can someone just, like, I'm looking at this sheet now that that Craig created, and the new shard low urgency CPU bound has a couple of these queues that I'm not really, I don't understand why is this CPU bound. Like, let's use an example of update all mirrors. Oh, sorry, now sorry, stock import jobs. Why would that be CPU bound?
Because
I mean, go ahead.
It loads a bunch of records and then goes through them, checks them, like loads a bunch of records into memory of imports that are marked as started, and then it checks if they are like still running or not. Like, and if they aren't, it marks them as failed, I think.
The other thing I'd say, Marin, is it's kind of difficult to like guess all the reasons why things would be CPU bound. So that's why we just use data. We just use the data that we have to do that division. So if it's spending like 33% of its time on CPU, then we consider it CPU bound. Otherwise, we don't.
Okay.
Andrew,
it's based on stats rather than analysis. Yeah.
I was just about to say, Andrew added that to the documentation for Sidekiq workers. I'm going to dig up the link now. The Sidekiq's development style guide with a calculation on how to get there. And then I remember seeing a table somewhere which queues that were.
Okay.
The second point that I wanted to make was that if you, like, I've been doing all of this SLO stuff for these things. My internet's okay. And, you know, all of the alerting per worker. And I'm pretty convinced that at some point fairly soon, we're going to want to add this criticality attribute as well. Because at the moment, we're just saying that all workers have got the same error rate for the number of errors that they're allowed. And that's patently not true. Like, some queues are much more sensitive to failures than others. So obviously I'd like I think the least critical should be like a 10% error rate, but I'm using 10% at the moment for everything because you know, that's kind of what I can get, because I have to kind of use the lowest common denominator. Otherwise we'll end up with lots of alerts. Obviously there's some, like the pages SSL verification ones, that are sitting at like 60% pass rate, which is like ridiculous, and that needs to be fixed either way. But I think that we're going to have to grade them, and so that's an attribute that we probably want to add.
There's also, when we do that, we're also going to have work on determining which of those workers that currently should be marked as has external dependencies, but then like, for example, we use errors incorrectly for retrying jobs and so on sometimes. So for example, the update all mirrors worker, no, not the update all mirrors worker, the repository update worker, the one that actually does the pull, that sometimes fails deliberately to be retried later. which affects our our indicators, but it shouldn't.
Yeah. And we want to give people like an easy way of doing a repeat, but maybe we should have it that there's like an error code or an error condition that like it leaves Sidekick and it's like, this is a transient failure and it's all okay. And we kind of relying on Sidekick to try it again and don't count it as an error or something like that. But I think like there's a lot of stuff at the moment where, you know, there's a job around expiring webhook events, and it runs 4 times a day, I think, and I don't think it's passed in months. And the reason it's failing is because the SQL is timing out, so it's really hurting Postgres because it's running and just timing out. And you know, we don't have any of the alerting on it, so we need to put alerting on these things. But and this will bring a whole bunch of that stuff out of the mix.
Cool. I don't have any other questions for now. I mean, I see that there, like, this is all work in progress. I see the dashboards are there. So yeah, we can continue with the rest.
I wanted to ask a quick question to, I think, Sean or Andrew about this dashboard, just to clarify. There's
Sure.
somewhere on there, you can't see my screen, but somewhere on there, there's database timings. And those are measured in days. I assume that's the sum of all.
Yeah.
All queries.
Yeah.
Which one are you talking about? I'm sharing the screen.
Let me wait.
Feel free to share your screen.
It is shared.
It's under the Rails metrics row. So
Oh, yeah.
spell time, there you go.
This one is now yeah, measured in.
Yeah, total SQL time. Yeah. So do you want to just press V on that to make it big so people can see your screen a bit better? Yeah. So like, I find when you're looking at these things and you're trying to figure out if there's a problem, like summing or the amount of time spent in something like this is much more useful than like a straight P95 latency, because obviously you can have lots of small jobs or one big job, and it's a way of being able to aggregate that up.
Got it. A lot of small jobs keeping the database for 2 seconds versus.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So like it's I mean, latency per SQL call is also useful, but like the sum total of how much time you're spending is really useful for diagnosing some issues.
Okay, thanks for explaining. Osvaldo, I think you're next.
Cool. So let me share my screen. So yeah, so as a summary, we've been working on like releasing the Go profiling for all services that we have, Go service that we have. And now we first started with the Workhorse Web fleet. And that's actually staging, and we can see some interesting things already. Craig is working with me to release for other fleets as well. Like we are going to have like a Workhorse Web, Git, and API separated here. So it's interesting to have a better understanding of what's happening on each fleet, which is interesting. So yeah.
Should we make that web Workhorse so that all the web things are together? And then I don't know. I just suddenly thought of that.
I was thinking about that as well, but you also have Workhorse and then another service. So that's another kind of sorting as well. Maybe
we can deal with it if we need to. Yeah, it's fine.
You really like discussing colors of bike sheds, don't you?
I do, because they matter.
Cool. So yeah, we have like CPU time, read heap out of the box, which is interesting. So also really interesting is to see that we can filter by the top 50%. So it's spending like to 1 millisecond to 2 seconds. So, sorry, 1 second to 2 seconds. So you can see here like handle file uploads. You can see my screen well?
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, so it points to a file in the internal of GitLab Workhorse, and we can see the stack tracing here. It's not that good UI to have a look on the stack tracing, but let me see the frame here. Yeah, it goes to another screen and filters. There's some kind of fancy filter here. So it just filters by the file uploading. It's interesting to have a better look. One thing that we need to do yet is improving the version, because one thing that the Go Profiler do is like separating in different versions. So let's say we just bump a version on Workhorse and we want to compare to an old version, the differences in the profilers. We don't have that yet. We need to provide this version, because initially we were expecting to have like an env with the version of the service, but it's not reality because we are not using Google App Engine, I think. Yeah, we are using GCP that doesn't have this env, and we were discussing, me and Jarv, these days about that. So we will need to pass this to the profiler, so we have the separate versions, which will be interesting for us. So yeah, mostly that we are going to roll out.
So what does that mean now, that we're just watching the current version and it starts over again, or?
No, it means that, for instance, if we release another version of Workhorse, it will get a little bit mixed. So we need to see that, okay, this version was released on this time, so we need to filter on the time span and end time and see, okay, so these are the profilers for the new version that was released after this time. It's a little bit trickier. It's doable, but not that good.
So we can't rely on this during deploys, basically.
Yeah, we can just filter after this deploy. We are going to see this time span, for instance. So we make sure that just for this space of time, we have the profilers for this release, for instance. But yeah, the version would make this a lot easier. So, but this is just a single line change to choose LabKit, because you already passed the version to LabKit when initializing the profiler, the monitoring package. So we just need to use that version, basically.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you knew about the LabKit getting injected with the version.
Yeah, exactly. I was first interested in using the actual env because it's already in the environment, so I didn't consider using that. But since we already passed this on
it's the canonical thing, and we use it in Prometheus for, so even if it's wrong, it's going to be the same as Prometheus, and we should rather use the same observability values. If you just go back to the front page, so just take off those extra filters that you've got there. Just go back to the CPU time 1 year. I found this kind of interesting. Like there's an obvious, well, to me, something that definitely should be investigated. And that's the second sort of biggest stack to the left, the second one, the new backend round tripper. Like that's the next stack along. So
look for the thing in purple.
Round tripper, sorry.
New backend
purple, the
round
middle
tripper.
of your screen.
Middle of your screen, new purple between green and orange.
Oh, right.
Anyway, that whole stack over there, that actually, I'm pretty certain that could just be removed, because almost all round trippers are like singletons. And so the fact that we're creating all of these all the way down to like a big wasteful syscall there, and if you go back to the go back up, like step out of the obviously the vertical length is, sorry, the horizontal length is the percentage of time that we're spending in that. So that's a pretty big 10%. Chunk. And and 10%. And so that's, I bet there's like a really easy win in just making a single one of those. there's almost never any reason to be creating a round tripper on every request. And I bet you that's what's happening there. So that's dude, if all of this goes and makes Workhorse 10% more efficient, then
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's create an issue to discuss and try to.
That's awesome.
Osvaldo, I have a question. I don't remember seeing an issue from you about access, who will be able to access this and not. I need to go and chase that, because right now, for example, if I click that link, I have invalid role. I'm guessing it's going to be the case for majority of people as well. So it would be nice to have that issue ready so that I can start working to figure out that part. And my second question related to this is there a way to have this publicly visible within the organization so that we don't have to deal with roles?
Yeah, that's a thing that I was planning to discuss on this issue about roles in general, because I'm not sure if is that possible to make it like just the profiler open to developers without having to change authorizations for everyone. Is that possible? I'm not sure if Jarvis is aware of a way that.
So most of the stuff in Google Console, Google Cloud at least, has the same permissions model, and obviously you can use groups in there as well, which are associated with Google Groups. So if we have like a developer or engineering role or group in our Google Apps, we should be able to use that.
It surprises me that I could just access it and Maren couldn't. That must be the only thing in whole of GitLab that Maren can't access and I can't.
Yeah, it's
probably a good thing as well. But the problem here is if we have GitLab staging, that means we also have GitLab production, which is going to be far more useful than GitLab staging. And even if we have those groups that you're mentioning, Andrew, that means that everyone will have to go through access requests. And
no, because we add the group once, Maren. So we add like engineering@gitlab.com.
But engineering is not getting updated.
It'll have to be an entitlement, and it's going to have to be part of onboarding and offboarding, I think, to add people to this group. That's the only way we're going to do it. But I think it might also be useful for log access, because I have a feeling restricting access to production logs is going to be coming soon, and we're going to need to use a Google group for that as well if we continue with IAP. So I don't know, maybe we'll switch to Okta, but in any case, I think, yeah, we'll have to have a Google group, and it'll have to be an entitlement.
Okay, this is a recorded call.
I was thinking the same thing.
So, no, I wanted to say something, but I'm not gonna. Okay, Osvaldo, can you please create that issue so that I can run with this? Because whatever we do, it's not gonna be useful if we can't share this with everyone else.
Yeah, sure. They'll create an issue to discuss a little bit better. Okay. Anything else on this topic? All right. So
there is one other thing about this topic. Sorry, Osvaldo. Can we make sure that we have things working for Workhorse first before we continue expanding further? So make sure that versions are working, make sure that people have access on staging and on production before we invest any additional work into expanding this to other libraries. While it will be useful, I question whether it's going to be useful if we cannot figure out access. Right? If we have to like continuously go back and forth between people wanting access and us telling us, well, you need to go through access requests without any proper form. I would like to have that handled before we invest more work into it.
Yeah, I just took a note on that.
Thank you.
Cool. So the next one is the Beam background jobs script. So a little bit of background on this very quickly. We are deciding on moving the Sidekiq cluster to core, and that's a big topic. We are planning to use Sidekiq cluster as a single source of truth, using this on Omnibus, source installations, everywhere possible. We are already using on GitLab.com. So it would be interesting to spread the usage even on DDK. So that's the step I'm right now on this. And so just quickly show how it is working right now. Everyone can see my screen. So that uses the work that Sean did to pass and wildcard to Sidekick cluster and then run all queues. So we are using the same script that we use for DDK, right here, like behind the scenes. And if you run passing Sidekick workers, it will try to run this background jobs SK cluster. I'm still figuring out the best name for this. And we are like trying to simplify the interface, like making the same interface for the old script that runs Sidekick and the new script. Basically, that script is basically a supervisor that we need to maintain, to use these on source installations. People still use that kind of thing. So for instance, for GitLab.com, that wouldn't be used. That would be used for GDK, for instance. But the whole supervisor
for source installations as well.
Yeah, the Beam background jobs is being used, like stop, start, and restart supervisor is being used there. So you need to kind of still use this and maintain. But the good thing is that, like, for instance, we are passing now this, and if you pass Sidekick workers, like say 1 or 2, behind the scenes, it's going to use Sidekick cluster. So yeah, starting 2 processes. So starting that's the command that we are going to use for DDK. So we can just remove that and fall back to the old behavior of Sidekick if something goes wrong. Ideally, we are going to release this for like an opt-in thing, just to make sure everything works well and we don't DDoS people's computer. So yeah, I think I can just kill this.
So one thing. Sorry, go on, Paulo.
No, I was just going to say that the other commands just work like the same. Basically, when passing Sidekick workers, this falls to the new Sidekick cluster supervisor, let's say. And if you are not passing, we are not passing this. This basically runs the old script that supervises Sidekick. Go on.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was like we did have one thing that Matthias had an issue with. That shouldn't be an issue for anybody actually using this, but just worth calling out. If you're starting Sidekick cluster manually, a lot of the new queue syntax, including the thing that means run all queues, which is star, is already a special character in the shell. So you have to quote the arguments. Like if you run Sidekick cluster star and you're running, say, bash, that's going to glob. That's going to run Sidekick cluster and then every file in the local in the current directory, which is not what you want. You need to quote it. So this script and Omnibus already quote those correctly. I'm just calling it out in case anybody's trying this out with that, because it did happen to Matthias when he was trying this out, and it's not an obvious failure mode.
Exactly. I just did that, and I was trying this on my machine and didn't quote that, and suddenly I had 200 processes on my computer.
Right, you get one per file, but none of those files are actual. Like.
And then yesterday, I just my computer just stopped working, because then I just tried to see the process, and it was trying to run queues that didn't exist, but it's still trying to run. It was like burning my PC. That's a very.
I have one quick question. The thing that you mentioned just before, where you were removing the variable Sidekick processes too, it would it then fall back to the old behavior, being just starting a single Sidekick process, or would it still start Sidekick cluster and then a Sidekick within that? No,
for instance, if we just remove that in start foreground, it's going to use Sidekick, the normal Sidekick.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, it's using two different scripts. That's basically the same strategy that we use for rolling out Puma. We have the same idea. We have web unicorn and web Puma, and a single web script to fall back to those two different things to manage. So yeah, there are questions. Anyone else wants to speak out loud? Part of moving sidekick closer to door. Okay.
That's just my notes.
Okay. Anything on this topic? Anyone wants to ask? All right. I think it's shown with CPU, skipperly, DB timings on sidekick jobs.
Yeah, so the stuff I got to demo is not only in progress, but in some cases broken, because I've had a week of struggling with various things. So thankfully, Jarves just helped fix one of them during this call. So that's good. That reduces my to-do list during the rest of the day. So first thing, we already had a histogram for CPU time in Prometheus. We just didn't actually display it anywhere. So now we do. I added ones for database and Git lead time, but this is for the post-receive queue. And you can probably notice that this isn't right because the post-receive queue is doing Git operations. So the P90, the P95, the P99, and the P50 should not be all the same all the time. So I need to look into how that's recording wrongly. But it's not a bug in the dashboard, it's a bug in the application itself. So this will also help with figuring out if a job's CPU bound or not, because we can watch like what it actually does in production. Easier. Any questions on that before I move on to my other thing?
The official way should still be Elasticsearch because of the inaccuracies in the histograms. So just keep that in mind.
Yes. So this is useful for some
as
stuff.
Yeah,
but because the histograms cap out at like whatever the top bucket is, right? Like you don't know if it's above the top of that bucket. So
no,
yeah.
well, it's not a, it's also like this the layout of the buckets, right?
Yes.
And how much inaccuracy is inside the bucket, not only at the top.
Yeah, except for these ones, which are 100% accurate for whatever they're recording. It's just whatever they're recording is clearly wrong because it's a straight line. So
they're very precise operations.
Yeah, exactly. We use exactly this much.
Yes.
So yeah, the other thing was, so last week we had, oh, sorry, go on.
Are you going to deprecate that other? Are you going to put the deprecation warning at the top of that other old dashboard, the one with the that you took that stuff from? Because it'll be great just to kind of like start pushing people over to these new dashboards.
I didn't move this from anywhere. That should be the Influx one.
Yeah, I thought this one that's HRS, the one you linked there, or is that just your?
Oh no, that's in the playground. Because
right, I got you. But there is the Influx one that we should.
Yes,
right,
so this pretty much gets rid of everything we have in the Influx one except method call timings. And do we even have the Influx one anymore? There. So the method timings actually can be really useful on the Influx one. And the only thing about them is I'm quite curious what happens if we turn off the method call instrumentation.
Things will go about twice as fast.
Well, yeah, this is the thing, right? Like, it's very useful to know that expire branch cache took 19.79 seconds in the slowest case, because obviously that's slow. But there is an overhead with instrumenting this, and if we're not really supposed to be using these, it would be interesting to switch them off. But I'm not tackling that right now. I'm just mentioning that as a side note. And yeah, I don't know. I know I use this. I don't know if anybody else uses this.
I've used this.
Okay, I might add a warning to that then, if someone could put that in. Oh, I'll put that in the notes.
The other reason why those graphs are so expensive is, at least with the Prometheus ones, they generate a huge number of labels. So I think I did some experimentation a while ago, and there was like 50,000 labels for each kind of point at which we put that on, which is a huge amount.
Yeah, which is so for this one.
The method timing ones, because
yeah,
there's just so many
there's all the
places
method
that
names. Yeah,
exactly. And so I kind of think one of the reasons why our Thanos is so, you know, janky sometimes is because there's just so many labels and so many different things. And so I don't know. I don't have a solution. Maybe like continuous RB spy profiling or something like that, but that's not really the same thing.
Yeah, I would be happy turning this off and seeing how it goes, but I don't want to do that right now, but I will add the warning to the top of this dashboard anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah, so the other thing I did relating to this stuff was I made a change to, so instead of latency sensitive, we now, instead of a latency sensitive agent label,
high.
Yeah, now we have urgency high, because we had latency sensitive yes, no, but we realized we needed more than two options. So I changed this, and the problem was, so when I changed it, we knew that we'd need to tell the on-call SRE when it happened, because we knew that it would trigger some alerts, but I don't think we really thought through that it would affect the overall SLAs as well, because it sort of feeds up into those. So here's an example of what happened. So this is using latency sensitive, and it's the AppDex for the the latency sensitive job completion. And then this second query is the same for urgency. So what we had in production was one of these two queries at a time. And you can see that the problem is we have this one, but then we lose data. And we have this one, but we don't have data for the past. So at this point, it was recording for the last hour. I think Andrew's changed that in the meantime. But the problem is,
I haven't changed it. That's by far the biggest impact, the thing that'll impact this, Sean.
What's that?
Oh, we changed it to 15 minutes, hey?
Yeah, because like, if it's recording for the last hour, then we can't just switch to the new one, because like we have the same problem in reverse there. So what we actually want, and we already have this for other metrics, just not AppDex, is a combination. So this is quite a long query, but it's not that complicated. So the combination is just this, oops, click the wrong line, is just this line here, which, okay, that looks spiky, but that's because the scales change. But basically you can see that it's pretty flat compared to the other two, and more importantly, it touches both ends of the chart, which neither of the other two do, which is the big issue there. So having got some help from Jav to actually build a new version of the images so that I can use the current version of JSONet to build this, it's not that complicated now to add a combined AppDex query. So that's actually adding the possibility to it. So this is what we could/should have done at the time, which is instead of changing this from using latency sensitive yes, we call combined, and we have urgency high and latency sensitive yes in there. And then once that's been in production for a sufficient amount of time, we uncombine it and just put it back to this. But there's no particular urgency on uncombining it, because you know, the combination of a thing that exists to the thing that doesn't exist should be the same as just the thing that exists anyway. So it's mostly just for clarity that we'd uncombine it, but it does reduce the dependency on having a person there, like telling the SRE on call this, and it also means that it won't break, it won't affect any SLIs or SLAs because of it. the other option there is obviously to emit both metrics from the application, but then we have like extra labels for a time, and we also have to juggle a bit more. This is kind of easier because
I think this is much nicer than
yeah,
the
this
second option.
repo is easier to get stuff merged in for a start. Like, you know, this repo deploys immediately, as opposed to like, you know, having to get held up for a security release or whatever. It doesn't affect customers. You know, like their Prometheus will also be getting the extra labels if we emitted both from the application side. So this is definitely the better way forward. So yeah, that's part of the fix for that. The second part of the fix is that I'm going to look at adding danger to this repository to warn if you change something that is. So often when you change these, you're intending to change them. And even in the MR where I changed this, I was intending to change it. But if we just have like a warning or a heads up, like that might help. We still need to figure out exactly what format that takes. Yeah, just danger there will also help us add like review roulette if we want to, and other things. So
yes, please.
It is worth pointing out that if you change them, the auto-generated YAML files will have to change or the build will break.
Yes. So sorry, what I meant was like, if you change the auto-generated YAML file, it's more a question of like, should you be changing this expression that refers to something that is this? Like sometimes you want to, and sometimes it's like, well, actually, I do want a combination there instead.
No, that's great. I mean, I think the biggest problem is going to be, the education. And so danger will definitely help with that.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for like what danger should detect on yet. I need to get onto that. But again, I just keep like sidetracking myself with stuff. So I'm like working on getting merge trains first, then I'm going to add danger. Then we get to this. So.
Sean, this is not, honestly, this is so important. This is not sidetracking. Like it's really important for our sanity and health. So if you're adding reviewer roulette, that's awesome. Add danger. If you add that to also some other projects that we have, like Chef Repo and so on, that would be like bonus for everyone in the department. So we are optimizing here for the department, not only for us.
Yeah, exactly. Because like part of the thing is like, I don't know who to get to review an MR in this repo a lot of the time, unless it's Andrew. So like having that be a bit clearer would help too, especially as we contribute more to it.
I just noticed that I can merge in the runbooks repo. Is that expected?
I mean, I can. I don't know if it's expected or not, but I can too.
Yeah, we had a discussion around it. We said we should all definitely have merge access. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So
There's a few.
It's
been like that for a few weeks, Bob.
Yeah, it's only now you've asked me to review something.
Everyone can contribute, so yeah.
As long as we don't do self merges, that's fine.
Well, you can't anymore because there's an approval.
Exactly. Cool. Anyone else? Thanks, Sean, for that as well. This has been educational. Anyone else wants to add something? Discussion?
I think the demo just merged with discussion topic, like everything happened on this.
Sure, that's also fine. Doesn't really. The structure of the demo document is not really that important.
I'm wondering a little bit, but I don't know if that's really something worth discussing. But regarding the whole dropping duplicate jobs, like we now can see duplicate jobs in the logs. Sorry about the snake case naming of that, Sean. But like soon we will be able to drop duplicate jobs, and I've already marked the authorized project worker as idempotent, but there's some work still need to be done to make sure that we have enough visibility into that. Yeah, should that be prioritized or not?
My concern with that is that it is very useful for the authorized projects worker, but I also want to be very cautious around changing that because, like, you know, we had a bunch of issues in the past where that wasn't, permissions weren't recomputed correctly, and we currently don't have a good way to like recompute permissions for everybody. Stan's created an issue for that, and it's in the GitLab Doctor epic that he created. So if we could try dropping duplicate jobs from a different queue first, that would give me a bit more confidence in that.
That was the thing that I was driving at. Right now, we only, we have a feature flag, but it's on percentage-wise or not.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't, we can't separate for queues. That's not a thing that our feature flag machine
No, we just have to add a separate flag per queue, right?
That we could do, yeah.
Which is obviously a lot of queues. So,
well, I'll leave.
We could only check the flag if the queue is a particular hard-coded queue, I guess.
I'll leave this running for a bit, and then when the merge request that allows us to flip a switch to drop queues hits, I'll have a look at which are the biggest offenders, and then just add an extra feature flag for that.
Because right now, authorized project isn't actually the biggest offender on this because of the other thing with the job weighted thing, yeah. Right? Yeah. Sorry. Some authorized projects jobs have 2 arguments. The second argument is a unique key for a web request that's waiting on it. So if the second argument is different, we can't deduplicate it. But we are not going to add that key when you have, say, 10,000 jobs to schedule, like we have sometimes, because the web request will
wait
not be able to wait for those.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like it will time out on waiting anyway. So yeah.
I remember you posted like a list of like the biggest offenders and like not exactly offenders, but the biggest duplicators, let's say. Do you have like an issue to triage those?
I added that to the, because we need to triage idempotent workers, so I added it there. The top ones are the ones we need to get to first.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
And some of those just won't be idempotent, like, you know, the webhook thing, like, or sends a notification like that we do want to send twice if we get a schedule twice, right? So there's only so much we can do about those.
Okay, I will create an issue for this still.
I think we just finished it on time.
Yep.
Look at that.
We did. Just want to share. Actually, no, let's end on a high note. Hope everyone has a good weekend. Thanks
That's
for
evil.
Hope you have all a good weekend. Thanks for another great week. A lot of great work here, and it's, I have to say, very rewarding seeing some of these things finally reach production. So thanks to Craig as well for starting to roll this out.
See you,
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.